like to call to order the committee of the whole meeting for Tuesday, May 12th, 2026 at 4:30. It's being held and transmitted electronically via council chambers located at 39 South Shore Road, Lake Calvert. Call to order the committee of the whole meeting for Tuesday, May 12th. We're good now? I'd just like to acknowledge we're joint here tonight on the unceded territories of the Subatsit First Nation. Is there any introduction of late items? Nothing. With that, can I have someone to move the approval of the agenda? Councillor Vormaka, seconded by Councillor Austin. All those in favour? It is approved. It is passed, I should say. Next up, we have public input. So if anyone would like to speak on anything on the agenda, now is your time to do it. You have 3 minutes. We just ask that you come up to the podium, hit the button, state your name.
Hello, my name is Randy Robertson. I'm the owner of 103 South Shore Road. You people probably know it as the Mountain Man ice cream. My wife and I last year had the fortune or good fortune of being able to buy the lots across the street. And it was our intention at the time that we were going to seek to put food trucks in there. We came to the city before I completed the purchase and spoke with building inspector. I see he's not here, big fella. Told him our intentions of what we planned on doing. Was there any issues that he could see? He said that it is approved from what he could see. And he had mentioned that the issue that he saw was that we were probably going to have to take the food trucks out at night. This was what was mentioned to us. We continued on with the deal, and we bought the lots. We've since cleared the lot. People have probably seen that. We've gone as far as we can, or what we choose to go. And it is our intention that that plan has not changed. We would like to put food trucks in there for the summer months. It's not my intention to put in food trucks for over the winter. Nobody's going to want food trucks. There's been some rumblings in town from other people that own businesses, and I understand that. People come to town for a very short period up here in Lake Cowichan, and it was that because they have brick and mortar shops that they feel that with food trucks coming to town, that would take a part of their business. And I wanted to counter that a little bit. I mean, if anybody's paying taxes, it's me. I'm pretty heavily invested in that lot across the road as well. Just for the lot purchase itself was $350,000, and that's a lot of hot dogs. So it's not a get rich quick scheme. It's to bring business to town, and you know, so people have choices on what they do. I'm more invested in it than anybody because I lease to a building, or at least in my building, to Poblano's Mexican restaurant. I certainly don't want to put those guys out of business. I believe in free enterprise. I'm a big guy that way. We have a ice cream store in town. When other people came to town with other ice cream ideas, great, bring them on. There's choice for people, and I like that. So I don't know that that's a valid reason to reject or to have a thought that way to not allow us to put food trucks on that lot. I'm a little bit perplexed. I did go through. I spoke with Bridget a couple times, and I did go through the zoning, and I had a look at previous discussions around food trucks. And from what I understand, and what Bridget is mentioning, that street vending somehow doesn't entail food trucks. I believe it does, but it said that there was, you know, street vending, and this was from your minutes in 2011. Street vending is seen as a convenience and opportunity for the public to have access to street level products. We all know that the tubing is a big draw here in town. There's a lot of people that just come in flip flops and shorts. We turn them away constantly at the ice cream store and at the Poblano's as well, because they're not dressed for it. So I thought that would be another reason that, you know, that food trucks would probably be a good idea to have across the road.
Can I just stop you there, Randy? Have
Yeah.
you seen the report that's been presented tonight that was in the agenda?
I did.
Oh, you did?
I
Okay.
did. Yeah.
That's what you're referencing.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And I just wanted to put people's mind at ease there. You can see the way we treat our building. We keep it good. We keep it clean. We keep it nice. And that wouldn't be any other thing across the road. That's exactly what we're looking for. So that's what we're looking to do. I don't know. I don't know where council is in that. I guess I'm kind of confused, and I'll let you guys speak to that. But I'm kind of confused on. I thought it was already like approved for food trucks and street vending, and I thought you guys had a bylaw, which was I think bylaw 777-2003, and that bylaw speaks to that. And so that's why I thought that basically if we follow the rules and just and now it's from what I understand, you're looking for clarity and you want to kind of you kind of want to set a guideline for this sort of thing is what I'm understanding. So with that in mind, I basically wanted to introduce ourselves. That's my wife, Susan. And just, we're hoping we're heavily invested in this town, and we're hoping to do more businesses here. I come from a business background. My family has businesses, and we like investing in this town. We like to see it grow, but we like to see people have options as well. So any questions of me?
I have a question. How many food trucks and what kinds of food? Are you going to have a variety of?
That's a good question. Well, as you know, there's a bakery across the street, and I think we ruffle some feathers with the bakery, which is kind of odd in sense. We're not looking at putting in a bakery truck. Last time I saw a 15-year-old kid run behind a building with a loaf of sourdough. I don't know that happens, but they have French fries and hot dogs and that sort of thing. So we're looking at doing that. I don't want to put anything in that'll be direct competition with our people that lease from us, as well as obviously with ice cream, because we have ice cream. So that it doesn't really limit us in that, but it lets us, kind of have, I'm thinking more like just hot dogs and poutines and that sort of thing. I went ahead already. I mean, that's of no consequence to you guys. I mean, I'm ready to roll. I've got a fencing contractor that wants to do that. My wife and I have checked into electrical for the lot. It's my understanding that we wouldn't be able to hook up to any sewer or water, which is fine because these trucks are self-contained. So that sort of thing, that's a good question, but that's kind of along the lines we would do. We wouldn't put anything in to compete with a bakery or a pizza place or anything like that. We're aware of people across the street and beside us, so we're not willing to ruffle feathers that way. And this is not something that's going to spill over into December or anything like that. This is just purely for the summer. So my answer to that, I guess, in a whole, is I haven't really made any contacts with food trucks yet, because I don't want to make promises or contracts with things I can't live up to. So that's where we're at with that. Anybody else? No?
Awesome. Thanks very much.
Okay.
For that.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak tonight? You guys are good? Okay. Thank you. No minutes. Business arising unfinished business. I see none. Delegation representative online. We have the guys from the CBRD Community Services who are going to give us a recreation needs assessment. Welcome,
Good
guys.
evening. Great, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. You guys can hear us okay?
We sure can.
Awesome, great. Well, thanks for having us here tonight to present to you the regional needs assessment for regional recreation. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Neil Pukish. I'm the General Manager of Community Services with the CBRD. And before I introduce Mr. Slawuta and his presentation, I just wanted to take a moment to provide you with some further details surrounding the staff report and the findings of the regional needs assessment. So the report before you today is for council's information. However, I wanted to let you know that that's not where it's going to stop. As you know, the report itself is quite large and it takes a lot of time to digest. And, we received this report back in March initially, and there's a lot of information there. So over the course of the next several months, this report will be shared and discussed at our upcoming sub-regional recreation commissions, and presented to our municipal partners in the Cowichan Valley in our hopes and attempts to get further feedback from the elected officials and staff for how we can look to implement some of these recommendations into our day-to-day and future planning. On the positive side, the report tells us that our facilities are well subscribed and that the program offerings are quite strong. However, as we look into the future, we need to begin thinking about things like asset management and future expansion opportunities. So just to give a recap, this report presentation has already been presented to the CVRD board back in March. Last week, we took this to the town of Ladysmith and to North Cowichan councils to provide the same feedback. And it's been delivered to our sub-regional recreation commissions, except for one, which is happening this Thursday. So having said that, I'm going to stick around and we'll be able to answer any questions that you have. I'm going to turn it over now to Mr. Steven Slawuta, who's going to walk through the presentation for you.
Great. Thanks, Dale. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
Fantastic. Well, good afternoon. I'm just going to share my screen here and we'll launch into the presentation. So just bear with me for 2 quick secs. I'm assuming everybody can see that. If I can just get a thumbs up in the room there, that you can see the presentation. Great, thank you. Okay. Yeah, in terms of the presentation overview here this afternoon, really threefold. So we'll share a little bit of information or background on the purpose of the work that our team was hired to undertake, the needs assessment, and then get into a very high level summary of the recommendations, which are called the recommended infrastructure strategies. As Neil alluded to, it's quite a lengthy document. There's a lot of analysis and a lot of background that went into this work. So we'll try to do the best justice that we can those recommendations in a few slides, but recognizing that there's a lot more detail in the document, which the cover image is on the right there. And then we'll leave some time at the end for any questions that you might have. So to start with the study purpose, really there were three kind of marching orders for our team here at RC Strategies. The first was to take a look at and assess the current state of regional recreation. So our scope here was to look at the 9 regionally significant facilities and to look at regional recreation. And that included looking at things like trends, what's changed, what are the gaps, strengths, and so on. Second to that, or subsequent to that, was to take that information and look at the 2019 Regional Recreation Strategic Plan and update the priorities that are identified in that document. Obviously, in the last 6-7 years, a number of things have changed that impact recreation, growth, pandemics, things, different activity trends and so on. So it was timely to update that previous 2019 document. And then ultimately, the intent of this work, as Neil alluded to, is to provide decision makers, councils, and the CVRD board and staff as well with a resource that can inform future decision making in a logic, data-driven, rationale-based manner. And we have it highlighted on the bottom of the slide here. Again, just to reiterate that this work was focused on regional recreation, so the intent of this document is certainly not to supersede local planning that the municipalities have done for things that are invested in and provided locally, parks and smaller scale recreation facilities. A couple graphics here really just provide an overview of the process that we went through. So I'll start with the 3-step process there on the right. So we initiated the work last summer and undertook a bunch of research and engagement. We then made sense of that information. So sort of that second block there, analyze what we developed for the data from the engagement and the research. And then that led to the draft needs assessment and ultimately a final draft of the needs assessment this spring. The box on the left there, really just a summary of all the different types of research and engagement that the team went through, which included a resident survey. So we fielded a statistically representative resident survey and we had over 1,000 responses to that. So that gives us a pretty good sample size and some insights into what residents think is good, bad, needed, and so forth. We talked to 49 different community organizations through the process as well. So that's a pretty good large number of organizations that are involved in providing, youth and adult sport, arts and culture, and so on. We analyzed facility utilization, data and looked at what the capacity is for different types of spaces, looked at population and demographics, looked regionally, provincially, and nationally at trends, did some mapping to understand resident access to facilities, and then benchmarked the Cowichan Valley with some other comparator jurisdictions and regions. So that leads us into the recommendations and priorities, and just to spend a couple minutes going through how we came up with those. Again, our focus was regional recreation facilities, and ultimately we wanted to ensure that we came up with those strategies, those recommendations in a data-driven, logic-based manner. So we used a prioritization framework that encompassed 3 steps. So the first step was we developed some criteria. So a number of different considerations that can be used to score and rank different facility and amenity types. We applied some weighting value to those, recognizing that some of those criteria are a little bit more significant than others. We then scored a whole laundry list of different types of facilities and amenities. And then in the third step there, that led us to the recommended infrastructure strategies where we applied some other practical considerations as well. So there's 3 buckets of the strategies here, and again, a lot more detail in the actual study. So we've just kind of curated a few of the more key recommendations here, and they are put into these 3 kind of slide buckets here. And the first one is strategies focused on sustaining aging infrastructure. So recognizing that the CVRD and its partners have hundreds of millions of dollars worth of existing recreation infrastructure, and asset management is recommended as an overarching priority for the CVRD and all of its partners to ensure that those facilities are sustained at a safe and functional level into the future. And specifically, we highlight the need for reinvestment into existing arenas, including the one certainly in your community, the 2 existing aquatic centers, community programming spaces, and the Cowichan Sportsplex and the Cowichan Performing Arts Center. So this is probably not a shocking recommendation or a strategy, but just highlighting the need to reinvest in those really important spaces. The second bucket here of strategies recommendations are focused more on forward-looking, long-term planning and actions to really look at the future generation of regional facilities. So what are the major investments that the study would suggest are needed? So I'll just go through these bullets here. So looking at ice arenas, we've suggested adding 1 to 2 new sheets of ice by 2040, so kind of a 15-year horizon. Ideally as part of a multi-sheet facility. There are kind of programmatic and operational advantages to having arenas as part of multi-sheet facilities, and currently there isn't one in the region. So suggesting to do those 1 or 2 sheets as part of a multi-sheet facility, and that could occur at an existing arena site or as part of a new facility. That planning is being suggested to be subsequent to the needs assessment. The second bullet there, undertaking some concept planning and cost validation for a 3rd indoor aquatics facility to serve the south part of the region. A lot of growth occurring in the south part of the CVRD in the valley, and not suggesting that gets built tomorrow, but there's a need to really better understand and have an updated sense of what the costs are to both build and operate a pool in the south end of the regional district. Third point there, identified looking at options for a smaller scale performing arts venue. The current theater is obviously a great facility and it serves larger functions really quite well. But there's a bit of a gap in terms of a smaller, publicly available, affordable performing arts venue, a black box style facility for some of those groups that need smaller scale performance space. And then lastly, the last bullet, it really just suggests that, as those larger facility projects are looked at, it would be worthwhile to look at kind of value add opportunities to meet other identified space needs, things like gymnasium, kind of large span program spaces. An indoor walking track came out quite high in the prioritization process, as well as increased fitness spaces. So you wouldn't necessarily build those amenities as standalone, but if a future pool, arena, and so on is looked at, it might make some sense to look at also including or co-locating those other types of amenities listed there. And then lastly here, there's a number of strategies that suggest some future planning or further analysis is needed around some different types of amenities. So the first bullet there, we've identified or suggested that the CVRD and its partners look at doing a feasibility study or a regional pickleball strategy to explore a major kind of regionally serving pickleball hub site. Obviously, there are pickleball courts dedicated or joint with tennis right now across the region, provided locally by the different municipalities. But we've suggested that it might make sense to at least explore what a major kind of tournament, multi-court type hub would look like, and whether that's something that should be considered regionally or not. And then the last bullet there, we've suggested a number of improvements to the Cowichan Sportsplex, covering the current sport box, looking at improvement to the natural surface field that the track encompasses, as well as actually surface replacement of the track itself. And then highlighted just in red at the bottom there, kind of an overarching suggestion that we provided in the study is just to continue to look at ways to improve data collection, particularly focused on casual and spontaneous use amenities. The CVRD and its partners do a really good job tracking and collecting and analyzing use of book spaces, so bookable data, but a bit of a gap in terms of understanding some of those spaces that are used more for just kind of casual drop-in types of plays. So we would suggest focusing on that information so that the next time this work is done, there's a better understanding of some of that casual drop-in spontaneous type of use. So I know that's a very quick, high-level overview, but thanks for giving us the time to present here, and Neil and I are happy to take any questions.
Awesome. Thanks very much for that, Mayor McGonigal.
Through you, if I may. I'm not sure if this is for Neil or you, but I think there's still some confusion on capital investments within the 9 regionally significant facilities that reside under the regional recreation model. So when you speak of reinvestment, does the reinvestment in existing facilities reside under the regional function or within the tax base of the facility? So I'm looking at, for instance, putting a pool next to the Cowichan Lake Recreation Facility. That would reside within the tax base of FI in the town. Is that correct?
Great question, and through the chair to Mayor McGonigal, it's one area that we haven't really addressed yet through the establishment of regional recreation. But my understanding through previous discussions prior to all of this coming forward is that the capital costs would be borne by the area that it's situated in. So it would be if we put a pool there, and then the operations would be split based on the current structure. But that would be, further discussion on that would be required. I don't think there's anything particularly in writing that says that, to my knowledge, but I could be wrong. But we could get back to you on that question for sure.
Thank you. And just to continue, I think that was the intent when this was presented in the referendum when it was implemented. But to look at maintenance of the facilities, for instance, if you need a roof or any other ongoing maintenance to keep the facility operating, I believe that resides within the regional function.
You're absolutely correct. Yes.
Excellent. So the capital investment resides within the local tax base of where the facility is. So an interesting fact is the displacement of ownership within the regional facilities. A number are owned by the CBRD, a number are owned by different municipalities. So it's a very complex issue, and probably took us 25 years to get to a regional recreation function. So you've got some work cut out for you.
We certainly do. Yes, there's been a lot of discussion leading up to the establishment of the regional recreation strategic plan. I know, just talking to people, it started early 2000s, if not before. But I think we're in a place now where we've got the funding model up and running. Next year, we are doing a usage analysis to determine the breakdown of the cost sharing. And it's just an ongoing thing. It's evolving, and we're open to looking at all sorts of opportunities. And I think what this report really does is it just highlights the need to continually invest in our facilities, make those preventative maintenance plans, future capital plans, so that we can make these facilities relevant for a very long time.
Does that mean we're building a swimming pool, Mayor McGonigal?
No, we are not building a swimming pool. We'll do one in the south.
Any other questions for the CVRD reps here, guys? No? Yeah, a few of us have seen this report, so that's maybe the lack of questions that are coming at the moment, but we would like to thank you for the report tonight, guys.
You're welcome. Thank you for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Have a good
Thanks.
evening.
Okay, with that, we'll move on to correspondence. Under reports, we've got development building permit summary. I believe that's just for information. We should probably have to move that though. We are looking for the committee recommend acceptance of the building permit summary report for the month of April 2022. Would someone like to move that? Mayor McGonigal, seconded by Councillor Austin. Any discussion? Call the question. All those in favour? It is passed. Next up, we have finance for period April 30th, 2026. Ms. Gill, would you like to present this?
Sure, thank you. The report is attached for the 4 months ended April 30th. We've got comparatives to December 31st, 2025. The 2026 budget numbers as presented are aligned with the 5-year financial plan, which will be coming up later in the meeting. There was one change in the budget numbers from the finance report that was presented in March, and that was the addition of $20,000 to the Lakeview Park Public Beach budget to increase it to $40,000, and that's what will come forward in the 5-year financial plan. The plan and the annual rates bylaw were given first, second, and third reading at the regular council meeting held April 28th, 2026, and will be presented later tonight. The audited financial statements will also be presented later tonight. There are statutory submissions that are required to the Ministry of Housing and Municipal Affairs. So by May 15th, we have to present the audited financial statements for last year, the 2026 tax rate bylaw, and the 5-year financial plan, and the ledge form submission. By June 30th, we have to present the SOFI report, as they called, the Statement of Financial Information, that contains a schedule of employee remuneration, council remuneration, a schedule of payments to suppliers, severance agreements, and an approval by the CFO and council, a management letter, and a schedule of guarantee and indemnity agreements. In April, we switched to BCT. I think information was provided at a council meeting in October or November last year. So we were providing tax certificates online to lawyers and notaries. And it was provided through TCO, tax certificates online. It's now switched to BC tax certificates. The charge for a tax certificate is $95 if you're requesting it in office. Through the BCT, it'll be $100.26. We try to keep them the same, but there's additional fees when obtained online. There's Stripe fees as well as the service provider fees. With TCOL, we were getting about $30 a tax certificate after all the fees, and I think the tax certificate was around $120. And now with BCT, the town will be keeping $70.80 rather than the $30. So that was the reason for the switch. Other points of note, business license renewals were sent out in November. The business license revenue is now reported on these financial statements. It's showing at just over $24,000. But $4,500 of that has been not yet collected, and we're working on that. We've sent out renewal notices. Transit revenue for Transdev is recorded for the 4 months and shown on the financial statements. 2 quarterly transfer payments have been made to Vancouver Island Regional Library. Payments are required at the first of every quarter, so you'll see that. Office expenses in general government are at 104% of the budget. It's because of contracted services included to a consultant for management and digitization services. Last year, we renewed the insurance for all the town properties. That was with Aon. So that expense is now showing for the 10 months to the end of October. In the water fund, we've recorded a receivable from a developer in the amount of $109,994. This is for a 10-lot subdivision, its contribution to the town's booster pump facility. If there's any other questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Go ahead.
Just through the Director of Finance. So under office expenses, so we're actually at 119,038. Will we bump up that budget because we're only into May, or will it just accrue overage of the budget?
We should leave it the same because the overall budget is what is important, the bottom line for fiscal management. It is not unusual for some line items to go over 100% and some to be under 100%, but we will keep it under.
Just to follow up. So do we have an expectation for the remainder of the year as to the possibility of what the expenses will be?
I could get back to you on that for the rest of the year. In total, it might be about 130% on this specific line item though, but the overall budget will come in under.
Any other questions for our CFO? With that, I'm looking for someone to move that the finance report for the period ending April 30th, 2026 be received for information. Moved by Councillor Vamarka, seconded by Mayor McGonigal. Any discussion? Call the question. All those in favour? That is passed. Next up, we have corporate elections. Number 1, appointment of election officer and deputy elections officer. We'll talk to Mr. Thomas on this one. No, we won't talk to Mr. Thomas. Oh, we'll talk to Ms. Roach.
So the purpose of the report is to request council to appoint the chief election officer and deputy election officer for the town's 2026 general local election to be held October 17th, 2026. Historically, council has appointed staff to these positions. The CAO has served as the chief election officer for the local elections, by-elections, and the assent voting, with the director of finance or the executive secretary serving as the deputy election officer. So recommendation is that staff be directed to seek a candidate to serve as the chief election officer for the 2026 general local election, and that council appoint John Thomas, the CAO, as the chief election officer for the general local election, unless or until another candidate is engaged and appointed accordingly, and that council appoint Ronnie Lee Roach as the deputy chief election officer for the 2026 general local election. Thank you.
Any questions on this? You'd like to move the recommendation? So the recommendation has been read out by Ms. Roach. Is there a seconder to that? Councillor Vamarka is seconding that. Any discussion on that? Mayor McGonigal?
It's hard to believe it's almost been 4 years, but every 4 years we get to do it again. This is your time, if you're interested, to consider putting your name forward for this wonderful opportunity. We're highly regarded and heavily compensated. No, but if you want to see and leave the town better than when it was when you started, I think this is an excellent opportunity to bring ideas and ideals to council for consideration. It's important that we get a cross-section of voices here at the table. We're not always in agreement, but we are uniform. So thank you very much for the 3.5 years that have passed already. I look forward to the next 6 months.
Thank you very much. There's no more discussion. I will call the question. All those in favour? That motion is passed. Moving on to the next one, which is bylaws elections. Ms. Roach, will you be presenting this? No? Yes? Maybe?
So I guess I get to do this one. So the Local Government Act provides that council for Lake Cowichan must establish by bylaw various procedures and requirements to be applied in the conduct of the elections and assent voting, including the use of automated voting machines, voting recorders, or other devices for voting in the elections. And these are established through the bylaw. So staff's recommendation is there's a draft bylaw there presented that the committee recommend that it be forwarded to the council to give first, second, and third reading to the Town of Lake Cowichan election and assent voting bylaw number 1133/2026.
Councillor Sandhu has moved the recommendation. It's been seconded by Councillor Austin. Any discussion on this? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favour? That motion is passed. Thank you very much. Now we move on to planning, food trucks and mobile vending. Ms. Reynolds, would you like to present this?
Thank you. So, yeah, we're seeking some direction on the proposed use of food trucks and mobile vending on both private and public property. So currently, there's two policies that address street vending, and one, the business license bylaw 777 also establishes regulations associated with street vending. And there are attachments of the two policies and the schedule from the business license bylaw in the staff report. So the street vending policy governs the use of street vending. So really, it's speaking to special event vending and mobile vending on public lands. And that policy was developed in 2011. And what it does is it establishes or invites vendors to submit applications to establish street vending operations at pre-approved public locations in town. In speaking with staff, that there aren't any pre-identified locations in town, and there hasn't been really any kind of established process for people to come in and make an application to do street vending. There is the special event license, that policy and license that allows folks to do it, to apply and do it for special events. And the zoning bylaw itself doesn't have any reference to mobile vending or food trucks. So we've had over the years and as well as in this year, we've had a number of inquiries for mobile vending, and both for people who want to operate on public property and also those who want to operate on private property, like Mr. Robertson. So far this year, we've received, I think, between 4 and 6 inquiries for a variety of activities: ice cream vendor, pop-up bathing suit retail, food trucks on private property. Another person wanting to offer sort of tuk-tuk drives around town. And then, as mentioned, we've received some inquiries about folks who would like to operate self-contained food trucks or mobile vending on commercially zoned private property. So it would be helpful for staff to have a revised policy or a policy that's made a little more clear, so that we know so that both staff and the general public is aware of what their opportunities are. Looking at just a couple of other or 4 other local governments who have some policy and regulation, and that's just it. Every jurisdiction appears to be a little different in terms of how they regulate it. Some just do it just by policy, while others do policy and regulation. But again, what would be helpful is, as mentioned, the current mobile vending policy related to public property. It's not clear because, again, there's no invitation process and there are no pre-identified public property locations. And then the list of items that can be sold is also somewhat limited in scope. And so if, with council's direction, that could perhaps be expanded. So certainly recommending that the policy be revised to remove the reference to the invitation process. And also, as noted, the existing policy doesn't identify or permit mobile vending on commercially zoned private property. And the zoning bylaw itself, it also doesn't specifically permit the use. It does allow for a restaurant. Restaurant is very broadly defined. However, having a clear policy is, again, helpful for both staff and public. So the recommendation is to, I've drafted a draft policy in attachment 4, and consider some possibilities or options as far as how we might move forward with this mobile vending on private property, commercially zoned private property. And we're also recognizing that it is somewhat of a timely item, but suggesting that some public consultation, or at minimum that it go to the Advisory Planning Commission for their consideration and input. So if you've had a chance to take a look at the draft policy in attachment 4, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. The permit fees themselves are what is already existing in the existing policy. And then a number of the other requirements are taken from the existing policy, but also identifying the need for, specific needs around, let's see, food safe certification, discharge management plan is an important piece to this, because as mentioned, the bylaws for both water and sewer don't allow the connection to those utilities so they're standalone. And then there's a number of other proposed policies related to how the operators should function.
First off, with the special events license, if someone was to rent Saywell Park, is there any requirements for them if they're bringing food trucks into that event? I couldn't find any in the.
So that would seem to me to be a public, and I'm less familiar with sort of the public policies, but it would be the special event vending permit, right? So yeah, and I think they do. There have been food trucks that have come in those instances, but they tend to be kind of the one-offs or for the weekend, lake days or whatever, as opposed to food trucks being on a specific property for an extended period.
So as part of lake days, if they were to get food trucks in, there is requirements around that?
Yes.
There is.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Thomas?
I was just going to add that if they're serving food, there will be requirements around food, particularly from Vancouver Island Health Authority, and the water and sewer bylaw will still apply as well. They would have to be a self-contained unit and everything surrounding the commercial kitchen operation.
Mayor McGonigal.
Thank you. I certainly see in the summertime people being turned away from concrete restaurants. And I have been an advocate for other options for quite some time. I have gotten a number of inquiries as to how this could be accommodated during the summer months. That's when we need the extra capacity. We have in the past dealt with one particular food truck. At that time, it was to be adjacent to the facility, and the food was to be prepared in that kitchen and brought to the food truck for presentation. And they were utilizing that more as a mobile apparatus for people who had come out of the river or lake from tubing, who may have not been able to attend the facility given the attire that they had chosen. I don't have a problem with food trucks on a time specific portion. When I'm looking at number 7, fees, mobile vending permit fee, is the $900 in lieu of a business license, or would a business license be required for each food truck on the site?
Yeah, a business license would be required for each food truck. And additionally, I think that a business license would also be required by the property owner who is establishing that business, because they are carrying on a business as well.
So if I can carry on, if you don't mind. Would it be possible, through the chair to you,
to look at that property as a site-specific entity for food trucks within the allowable uses within that commercial zone.
That could be done, and it would be either through like a temporary use permit or a zoning amendment.
And the reason I'm going there, I'm trying to accommodate some sort of option moving forward where it could be a trial process to see how it is incorporated. But I do like the idea of getting the input from the APC on any concerns that they may have. I'm hoping that it's not too late now to implement that this year. I'd hate to see the investment subside for a year, given the timing of summer is pretty quick. So I'll wait for other comments.
Councillor Womack.
I know we're always talking about that uptown area and how we're trying to promote people to walk through and to visit the businesses. So I look at this and I think this is a great way to keep people coming off the river to stay in the community and visit businesses. I'm in agreement with the removal at night as per other recommendations, and $900 per truck compared to a brick and mortar that pays $100 for the year, I think is quite reasonable. And so I'm in line with that too. And I was hoping that because we are so late, that as the mayor said, we can either do a site specific or a temporary use permit to see how it would go. It's something like our bed and breakfast. We have one zone for bed and breakfast, and then everybody else comes to apply in different areas because, of course, we don't want the whole downtown filled with food trucks. But I'm definitely in favor of this, and I'm hoping we can put something together. Thank you.
There is a recommendation. Would you want me to read that out? There is a recommendation that the contract planner recommends that the existing policy attached and the draft policy attached, which I must say has been created very fast. Thank you for that. Be referred to the APC for its review. Now, the next APC meeting is next Thursday, which is the May 21st. And a community consultation event or survey be prepared to gather the community's input on this matter. May put us behind schedule a little bit for the summer. So I'm looking for someone to move something to do with this recommendation or report. No one's moving anything?
Well, I just don't want to do it on the fly. I have to script something. You have Councillor Austin.
Councillor Austin.
I think we do have to push this forward, especially when Mr. Robertson said he was told it would be probably be the thing that he could do. I don't know. I just think we should not wait any longer. We've talked about them before. I think we could do a temporary use permit for that site. For that, can we not?
Temporary use permit comes at a significant cost though, doesn't it? And there's a process
Too much.
involved in that.
So it'd be better to do the other way.
How about this? I'm going to move this, that the existing policy, you're going to cut me off or?
What? You're the chair.
Yes, Mr. Thomas.
Oh, thanks. Sorry, a possibility is to have the APC review it and bring it back to the next council meeting. But this could also be considered sort of a time limited policy, to come back and reevaluate it in the fall. Because a temporary use permit would take, just with notice and so on, it would be probably towards the end of June, if not into July, when it would be completed.
So for clarity, if this goes to the APC next Thursday, it could then come back to the regular council meeting, but a bylaw would, or their draft bylaw would require 2 sessions to get this through, wouldn't it?
A temporary use permit would take two, or just with the timing, it would put it into June, the end.
I'm referring to the draft policy.
I mean, the policy is done by would be done by resolution. So that would just be done, at one meeting.
So what we could do is send this to the APC meeting next Thursday, and then the regular council meeting, the policy could be presented to council for approval.
That's right.
Believe it or not, that's what I was going to move the first time. Would you like to move it, Mayor McGonigal?
Well, I think there needs to be an addition that we direct staff to work on a trial basis of placement on the site-specific property for food trucks for the summer months of 2026.
Can you clarify your motion there, please?
So the contract planner recommends the existing policy go to the APC, come back to the council meeting. And perhaps at that time, that would be for us to move forward with that trial basis. I'm probably a little premature in putting that with this. So just so you know, I'm interested in it placement this year. And I hope everyone understands, but we have to make sure that we do this correctly and make sure that it's implemented with the policy and the surrounding documentation to accommodate it. So let's just do the one that's there.
So if I'm going to clarify your motion, it would be that the existing policy attachment and the draft policy be referred to the APC, which is on May 21st, and then that be brought back to the next regular council meeting for review on policy. Do we have a seconder on that? Councillor Sandu? Is there any more discussion on this? Mayor McGonigal.
And just so staff understands the intent, they heard what I had considered as an option. If we can look at a way to make that site specific for that property on a trial basis, I think that would be helpful if that came to council meeting at that time.
Just through the chair, I think there are probably some issues with trying to make it site specific because essentially there are mechanisms like the temporary use permit or the zoning, but by adopting a policy and identifying a site specific property, I think there's certainly an equity issue associated with that. So by having a blanket policy, then yeah, we may see other applicants come forward wanting to locate a food truck, but then again, potentially at the end of if we put it as a to the end of the summer or something like that and reevaluate it back then we can revise the policy, amend the zoning.
Fair point. And the reason I was looking at that is the Bear site, the Bear land site was what I was looking at, not a brick and mortar facility, so to speak. I think we have to look at both options, how that can be accommodated for food trucks. As I spoke of earlier, there was one adjacent to a brick and mortar building. So I'm just trying to be as convenient as possible.
And again, through the chair, if I may, I mean, that wouldn't, as drafted now, that wouldn't preclude that from happening, or the site that's getting at the roundabout is getting cleaned up, they may come forward and say they would like to put a food truck on there. Again, it's the land's got to be commercially zoned, and then also they would have to be providing all the necessary information.
We're just going to Mr. Thomas first, if that's okay.
Subject to what the final text of the draft policy says, this may also require changes to water and sewer bylaw in order for you to give effect to some of the intention that council may want to do.
May.
And would, through the chair to whoever, would it also require an amendment to the zoning bylaw within the commercial entity?
No, I think it can be accommodated, just given the definition of restaurant. And then again, it's, we're talking about commercially zoned property where that use is permitted. I think the definition of restaurant is broad.
Thank you.
But it would, I think, for as an ongoing basis, it would be important to amend the zoning bylaw to make things much more clear.
So,
Councillor Marker.
question in the draft policy, so we're allowing them, but in the new policy, would we be stating a time frame so that we don't have somebody there all year round? Like,
It-
will we say seasonal and have the permit for $900 would be
I mean,
seasonal permit.
that's certainly what I, from the comments that I've heard from council, is that it would be seasonal. I've also heard mention, a trial basis, removing at night.
So it might alleviate some of the business owners that may be opposed to it.
Possibly.
I'd also suggest if any member of council has strong views as to provisions that should be considered for the draft policy, to send those directly to the APC for consideration as well.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Are we happy to vote on that? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favour? Those against? Right, that motion is passed. Thank you very much. Next up, we have new business, notice of motion, storage containers. Who would like to present this? Or is this us? Mayor McGonigal.
I put this forward as a notice of motion, and I sent the text that resides within the agenda, that staff investigate a policy, fee system, and timeline for temporary use of storage units for those moving from or to Lake Cowichan to remove the possibility of bylaw complaints regarding their use. So when you drive around town and you see storage units in people's driveways, some of them are being utilized for storage as they are moving in or out of the community. But under the current bylaws, should someone complain, that would be investigated and it contravenes the current bylaw. I looked online as to other municipalities and how they incorporate it. There's many that do allow the temporary storage of units on residential properties for moving or renovation, for instance. Temporary limits, many municipalities allow containers for 30 days. District of Mackenzie permits one container for up to 1 month during relocation. City of Surrey requires a portable building permit for temporary structures. And they must generally be on private property and not blocking the streets or sidewalks. Some areas have specific bylaws that regulate these. So I think we have to give an option, not for storage, but for moving. It's cheaper to go this route than it is a moving company. So just looking at other options and see what council's thought is. I know that we don't want a CCAN city, and that's not the intent of this. It would be under a permit, time limited, and then from there would be regulated.
Any discussion on this? How would you like to move forward with this, Mayor McGonigal?
Ask staff to look at a policy and a fee system and include renovations instead of relocation.
Mr. Thomas, Mr. Reynolds, would you like to see that as a motion or just direction to staff?
A motion would be helpful, but I just want to advise the zoning bylaw clearly states that their use is specifically not permitted. So it would require an amendment to the zoning bylaw to at least to make room for this temporary nature.
And that's the intent, to make it temporary. So I will make the motion that staff investigate a policy, fee system, and timeline for temporary use of storage units for their for those moving from or to Lake Cowichan and for renovation purposes, to remove the possibility of bylaw complaints regarding their use, and that the zoning bylaws be amended accordingly.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Walmarka. Any further discussion on this? No, with that, I will call the question. All those in favour? That motion is passed. Question period. We move on. Oh, and sorry, any more notices of motion? No. Okay, question period. Limit to items on the agenda. If you guys would like to ask any questions now, I mean, you can ask us about anything on the agenda. I don't hear that phone ringing, so I don't think there's anything coming in. Would you like to ask anything?
I have a question in regards to, if approved and allowed to carry on with the plan here, about removing food trucks at night. Is that an option that you'll be looking at as having them pulled out?
I believe what Ms. Reynolds was referring to was the park and public spaces use. Was that correct? Or you're saying on commercial property as well?
That's what I was understanding from you, because we were talking about this draft policy and that it was related to the commercially zoned, the private property.
Was that the intent from council, is that we want food trucks pulled out at night on commercial property? Councillor Vormarker?
I think a lot of them, the people that have the food trucks, they normally drive them in. So they would have to remove them anyway to bring them back to where they keep them, to clean them and to restock them, much like a mobile coffee truck.
Yeah, I plead ignorance on this because this is brand new for us, and I'm not sure of that, but what we've planned on doing is we planned on, one, I have a application for development permit with Bridget there for the front of the property and the sides of the property, being that we're here a good portion of the year, and I can see the people cutting through that property. So food trucks aside, I want to fence that property. I don't want to have anybody with access cutting through. It's a liability issue, especially it's a liability issue if there's food trucks in there. So that's where I just wanted to know if that's something that would be looked at if there is, for example, what I proposed on my development permit was that we were able to put in a section of sliding gate there that would be open during the day for the public to come in, and then at night those gates would be closed. And so there would be a man gate, obviously, for anybody that needs to get in there for any purpose that they need to be there. But I just didn't want to shut that door as far as saying, okay, well, listen, you're welcome to come here for a week. When you say food trucks, you have to keep in mind that when it's raining or when it's snowing, nobody's selling anything out of a food truck. So the idea is that if they bring their food truck up to the site and they want to stay for a week, for example, and they that they put it there and they leave with the idea that they'll be out in a week, sort of thing. But if they do leave that there, that obviously that the gates would be something that would protect their investment and mine and my liability as well. So I just wanted to know if there was room to kind of move around that for having to pull the food trucks out at night.
I guess one issue is that the policy doesn't revolve just around your property.
Yes, I understand.
So if we were to get a policy in place, it might not be the same situation.
Right. Well,
but I do, however, want to get the opinion of this of the table on taking food trucks out at night. Is that what we're talking about for commercially zoned properties? Is that the feeling at the table, that you'd like to see the trucks pulled out at night?
I was just going by what was already in other policies.
Which is in
There-
public
Yeah.
places.
Yeah, but there might be a reason for it.
Okay, so can I ask that we just give guidance to staff for the APC meeting that is what he sees? I don't believe that is the feeling of this table,
Okay.
that's what we want.
okay, thank you. I don't think I have any more questions as far as that goes.
Thank you, sir.
One last thing I wanted to speak to, and I don't know if it's pertinent, is the fence. I know that the fence, when I applied for the development permit with Bridget, and it's my understanding that if I was at 1.2 meters, I wouldn't need a permit because I could do it. It's a certain height. That I went to 2 meters. It's now in the development permit area. Am I correct in that? Okay. Because one way or another, I'd like to put a fence in, whether it's 6 feet or 1.4 meters, which is I'm not an inch guy, but 52 inches or 54 inches or something. So something like that.
Am I right in saying that the commercially zoned fence height is higher than residential? It is near 6 feet, isn't it?
It is, but it also, the zoning bylaw states that a development permit for that height, a development permit's required, and that would be coming to council at the next meeting.
Okay,
Okay, so so that'll be dealt with then. Okay. Okay, thank you very much for your time.
thanks.
Thank
Cheers,
you.
mate. Now we have an in-camera portion of the meeting. The reasons to go in camera are stated in our agenda, so I will not read those out. I'd like a motion to go in camera. Councillor Sandhu